أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. قال الله تعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وقال الملك ائتوني به فلما جاءه الرسول قال ارجع إلى ربك فاسأله ما بال النسوة اللاتي قطعن أيديهن إن ربي بكيدهن عليم. قال ما خطبكن إذ راوتن يوسف عن نفسه قلنا هاش لله ما علمنا عليه من سوء. قالت امرأة العزيز الآن حصحص الحق راودته عن نفسه وإنه لمن الصادقين. ذلك ليعلم أني لم أخنه بالغيب وأن الله لا يهدي كيد الخائنين. وما أبرئ نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي إن ربي غفور رحيم. قال الملك ائتوني به أستخلصه لنفسي فلما كلمه قال إنك اليوم لدينا مكين أمين. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So last week we've spoken about, or we left off where Yusuf alayhi salam requested that his case is heard about in terms of what had happened between him and the woman who cut, not the woman, the woman's, is that a word? Woman's, plural, right? Singular, huh? Woman is singular. Woman. صح. Women who had cut their fingers, right? Now, in ayah number 50, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ ائتوني بِهِ. The king had requests to see the person who translated the dream. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُ الرَّسُولُ. And when the messenger who went to Yusuf had came to him, قال ارجع إلى ربك فاسأله ما بال النسوة التي قطعن أيديهن. Yusuf had responded saying that he said to return to your Lord, return to the king, and ask him about the women who had cut their fingers, to look into his case, right? Inna Rabbi kaydahunna alim. Indeed, my Lord, and we mentioned there was two parts to this, two explanations to this last portion, right? He says, indeed, my Lord knows about their planning or their cunning of their plan, right? So the two parts was either my Lord Allah knows about this issue, or the person who I work for, meaning my master, knows the issue of this knows this issue. So the following ayah, the king goes to this woman. قال ما خطبكن إذ راوتن يوسف عن نفسه. What has gotten into you people? Or he approached the woman and he says, what's wrong with you amongst you women, and why did you try to seduce Yusuf? The king himself went to the woman and he asked and he inquired about the issue. So the woman replied, they said, قُلْنَا حَاشَ لِلَّهِ, said, meaning Allah forbid, or أعوذ بالله, مَا عَلِمْنَا عَلَيْهِ مِنْ سُوءٍ. They're saying about Yusuf alayhi salam. Now this is pretty interesting because they immediately say that we don't know anything wrong or indecent from Yusuf alayhi salam. Immediately. So they are lifting Yusuf alayhi salam's name from any guilt, saying that we only know from him good. We don't know anything from him which is bad. قالت امرأة العزيز الآن الحصحص الحق. Now the woman, the Aziza, the wife of the Aziz, she speaks out now after many years, and she says, الآن الحصحص الحق. Now has come, the truth has come to light. Now the truth has been revealed, has been exposed. So after so many years, now is the time when the truth has been exposed. She says, حصحص الحق. أنا راودته عن نفسه. I was the one who tried to seduce Yusuf, not him. Right? So now she is revealing the truth amongst a court hearing, amongst all of her friends that was involved, or not, just the woman of the city that was involved. Now she is the one who is speaking out the truth. Right? I'm going to finish the rest of the ayat, and I'm going to revisit each and every single event, tying it to something very, very important that we mentioned earlier. All right? So now she's revealed the truth, and she says, وَإِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. Indeed, he is the truthful. I'm the one that's wrong here. Right? Ayah number 52. ذَلِكَ لِيَعْلَمَ أَنِّي لَمْ أَخُنْهُ بِالْغَيْبِ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي كَيْدَ الْخَائِنِينَ. Now, ayah number 52 and ayah number 53, there is a debate. There is a confliction in between who is speaking here. Some of the mufassirin and some of the scholars mention that it's either the Aziza, the wife, is speaking, or Yusuf alayhi salam is speaking. Now either one will visit the two, right? So let's just say Yusuf alayhi salam is speaking here. He says, ذَلِكَ لِيَعْلَمَ أَنِّي لَمْ أَخُنْهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. Yusuf alayhi salam says that my master, he should know that I did not betray him bil-ghayb, with his absence. Meaning, during the time of the incident between his wife and myself, I did not betray my master when he was away, meaning bil-ghayb, meaning he wasn't there, right? So he was trying to send a message to his master. Me as a servant, Yusuf alayhi salam, I wouldn't even betray my master while he's not there. Showing what? Showing that he was always on the side of truth. And his character wouldn't, the way he was, he wouldn't be in a state where he would even betray his master while he was gone. Right? Bil ghayb. And then he says, وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي كَيْدَ الْخَائِنِينَ. Indeed, Allah does not guide those who betrays. Right? So meaning that he's not of those who betrays. Now he continues to say, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي. I do not acquit myself. I don't say that I am innocent of everything. Right? In fact, he's saying that not all the blame is to the queen, or I mean, not the queen, the Aziza, the wife. Rather, that I am, how to say this? I'm partially to blame. I don't want to say that, but so he says that I'm not. وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي is like I don't want to put all the blame on someone else. Does that make sense? صح ولا لا, Shaykh? Okay. And he says, إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ. Indeed, he's speaking about the soul here, about the nafs. And he says that the nafs is a persistent enjoiner of evil. And then he continues to say, إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. So he is explaining here something very interesting. He says that I'm also to blame here because I'm human. I'm just a human. Right? He's speaking up in what's reality here, that he himself is a human, right? And his nafs would be an enjoiner of evil, meaning that he would be. The reason why I'm thinking so much is because I'm trying to be careful about what I say about my prophet, if that makes sense. I'm afraid about saying something wrong or putting something wrong in my prophet's mouth. So this is why I'm finding the difficult words to explain here. Yusuf alayhi salam, he's recognizing that he's just human. And he's recognizing that his nafs can be altered or can be influenced by evil. However, he ties that nafs, that deficiency, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says that, إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي, except for those who Allah has raham over. Right? So if Allah does not have raham or mercy upon a person, he would be led to following his nafs, if that makes sense. So, Inna Rabbi Ghafurur Rahim. Now it's interesting because he ends his sentence by saying, Allah is indeed the most forgiving, the most merciful. Even though our nafs would lead us astray, even though our nafs, and him as a prophet himself, he also has the nafs. And even that would lead him astray, except for those who Allah has raham over. Now he's, by this story, by this sentence, it gives us the understanding that human beings are subsequent to our nafs. Our nafs is there, it exists as human beings. But for those who Allah has raham over, can only be able to be saved from his nafs. And even at the end, for those who are not saved from their nafs, or those who are saved from the nafs, Allah is who? Allah is Al-Ghafur Ar-Rahim to both types of people, right? Now this is if Yusuf alayhi salam was speaking. Now there are some contentions which some scholars mention that the one who is speaking here is actually the Aziza, the wife of the Aziz. Now, if she was to be speaking, and she says, ذَلِكَ لِيَعْلَمَ أَنِّي لَمْ أَخُنْهُ بِالْغَيْبِ. Now she says that I hope that Yusuf knows. I hope that Yusuf knows that I did not betray him while he was absent, while he was away. Where was he? He was in jail. That I did not betray him while he was away, because we didn't hear from her after he has been put in prison, right? We didn't hear anything from her. Her plan had stopped at that moment. There are some people who mention that it seems as if she had a change of heart. It seems as if she felt guilt of what had happened and what she had done to Yusuf alayhi salam. So she's saying now that I hope that Yusuf alayhi salam knows that lam akhunhu bil ghaib, I did not betray him when he was absent, when he was in prison. And as she says, inna Allah la yahdi kayd al kha'inin, suggesting the fact that she had repented and started to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And if that was the case, Yusuf alayhi salam had affected her to the point where she changed her religion, right? Now, what a turn that would be, right? It's like the story just took a left turn from there. The person who was attacking Yusuf alayhi salam was guided through Yusuf alayhi salam. And as she continues to say, وَمَا أُبَرُّ نَفْسِي, I'm not trying to relieve myself of guilt. I'm actually guilty, right? إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ. She says that the nafs that caused me to do this kind of pushed me to evil, right? إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. And she continues to say, except for my Lord who has except for those who my Lord has mercy on. Inna Rabbi Ghafur Rahim. Indeed, my Lord is the most forgiving, the most merciful. So take it either way, there's a lot to learn from these two ayats alone, right? I'll complete the last ayah, and then we'll go revisit every single point that I just made. وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ ائْتُونِي بِهِ. Now he summons Yusuf once more. Remember, he summons him to explain the dream. Now he summons him again. After what? After himself, the king, finds out the truth, goes and investigates the case of Yusuf alayhi salam by himself, because he went to go talk to the woman, correct? After finding out the truth, he goes back. He says, go summon Yusuf alayhi salam. He says, astakhlishu li nafsi. He says, I will take him for myself, like exclusively. I will have Yusuf alayhi salam for myself. Meaning what? Some of the scholars mentioned that he will take him so that he can be by himself, by his side. Because after learning about his case, he sees a person who would sacrifice more time to be in prison just so that the truth can be revealed. Right? Shows you what about Yusuf alayhi salam? Shows you that Yusuf alayhi salam was so truthful. And in fact, the character of Yusuf, to be able to just sacrifice his time in prison to stay in prison for the rest of his life, if nobody looked into his case, the king realized that somebody like this, somebody so truthful, I need him by my side. Because everyone else that works for me, nobody, not one of them, has the character of Yusuf. Astakhlishu nafsi, I will have him exclusively for me, to work for me, right? And then he says, فَلَمَّا كَلَّمَهُ قَالَ إِنَّكَ الْيَوْمَ لَدَيْنَا مَكِينٌ أَمِينٌ. He says, he speaks to Yusuf. He says, today, إِنَّكَ الْيَوْمَ, today you indeed are fully trusted by us. Everything you want, everything you need is yours. That's what the king is saying to him. Now there's 3 points to make here. There's three points to make. Let's go back to the beginning. Ayah number 51. If we think about a case today, any case, any court case, any person who's in prison, in any case today, a person would need to have a lawyer or a civil servant to come and investigate what had happened to that person when he's doing wrong. Why is he in prison? Correct? No, in any case, you will never find the judge themselves, the judge that will look into the case and find somebody guilty and somebody innocent. The judge themselves will never investigate a case. Never. Right? Who investigated the case of Yusuf alayhi salam? The king himself. Now when we say Allah Wahidul Qahhar, you guys remember? When we said that Allah was Wahidul Qahhar, and we explained what that meant, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He plans, it defeats every single else's plan. Everyone's plan is trumped by the plan of Allah. Correct? And we see it here. So the least likely person to investigate the case of Yusuf alayhi salam, somebody who is of the lowest in society, who was a servant of one of his workers. Nobody knew who he was. He didn't have any social media accounts. He didn't have any family to talk about his issue. He didn't have anybody who knew him, any friends who knew him, to even suggest to look into his case. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala got the king himself to go investigate himself for him. Does that make sense? In any story, this would be something impossible. Right? Let's move on. So the king goes investigate the case of Yusuf alayhi salam. Now, in any case today, if somebody were to be proven innocent, you would have to get witnesses. You would have to get circumstantial evidence, evidence that is scattered across the scene. You would have to have police reports. You would have to have many things to prove somebody innocent. Correct? In this case, the only person that could get Yusuf out of prison was the wife of the Aziza. Right? Now, if we had a case today, and it was against two people, how likely would the person who's guilty say that, yes, I'm guilty, I did everything, I'm the one that killed that person, he didn't kill him? How likely would that be today? Or throughout history? Have we ever heard a case in which the person who's guilty came out to say that, yes, I'm in fact guilty, even though all of the evidence, every person that was there, all of the women was pointing to Yusuf? Everything was against Yusuf. And the only thing that can get him free was the words of the Aziza. How likely would that be? Nearly impossible. Correct? Yusuf alayhi salam, when Allah says that I will look over him, I am alimun hakim. I know everything that the condition of Yusuf, and I am the hakim. I am the most wise. I will know. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. When Allah says this is what happens. From the impossibility of the judge, the king himself, investigating into the case of Yusuf alayhi salam, to the actual court case itself. Now, when the Aziza herself, in her words, in a hearing amongst everyone who was witnessing during that day, if she were to say that Yusuf alayhi salam was innocent, in fact, I'm the guilty one, can anybody else come afterwards and say anything about Yusuf? Can anyone else say, you know what, there is 1.0001% that Yusuf alayhi salam is possibly guilty? Can anybody say that? No. Nobody can ever say afterwards that Yusuf alayhi salam is guilty, even that small percentage. So, now let's just say that the Aziza, she was so adamant. She was shy. She didn't want to speak amongst people. She was shy amongst the women who cut their fingers. She was just shy and she didn't say anything. She didn't say it. Let's just say that the king himself found circumstantial evidence to actually point at the queen, or I keep saying queen, the Aziza, and found out that she was guilty. Through what? Through circumstantial evidence. Or let's just say that there was a jury. The people who say, what's a jury? The people who says, or the people who figured, who are the juries? What do?
They review the evidence.
They review the evidence, right? And they
basically vote on the evidences.
So they are the ones who look at the evidence, who hears the story between two people, right? And they are the ones who vote that, okay, this person's guilty and this person's innocent, right? Let's just say that the jury, let's just say that the one who cut their fingers, they say that, you know what, we were there, we saw everything. The woman, the Aziza, the wife of the Aziz, is actually guilty. She's the one, she didn't say anything, right? If that was the case, people in the city would be able to continue to speak about Yusuf. To be like, yeah, you know what, she was guilty, okay. But there may be 1% that Yusuf alayhi salam did something for her to do that. So, there would be people to talk about it, to continue to say that it can't be her. Like, why would she, she's the queen of, she has everything. Why would there would be people to be able to be talk against Yusuf alayhi salam if that was the case, right? Now, the queen herself, she was the one to admit that she was guilty. After that, nobody can ever come afterwards to say that Yusuf alayhi salam, even 0.00001%, that he did something to her first. So, she cleared his name. Right? Lastly, Yusuf alayhi salam, after being freed of prison, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a position that's nearly impossible to get. Not even the ministers, not even the people who work for the king, not even the wine bearer who brought the translation of his own dream. To get a position right next to the king is impossible for a slave. Sah? Isn't that correct? Which slave can be the vice president now, today? Nobody. Nobody. 3 impossibilities was made true for Yusuf alayhi salam. Why? Why was that? What did Yusuf do? Did he have social media? Did he have a following of 1 million people? Was he famous? Did he do his job very well? No, he was just a regular servant, right? He tended to the sheep. He did whatever they asked him to do, right? But when we analyze Yusuf alayhi salam, what do we find? We find his akhlaq, his characteristics. We find that he was always conscious of Allah. He had taqwa. He trusted Allah in every single event that happened to him. Remember, whenever there was a big event, who did he remember? Who did he remember? His Lord. That was the difference. And after years and years of patience, this was the reward here. Impossible made possible. Now, when we understand that Allah doesn't have any limits, when we truly understand Allah's names and attributes, when we truly understand that Allah does not have any limits, the possibilities are endless. The possibilities are endless. And in the case of Yusuf, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says in Surah Al-Talaq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَالِغُ أَمْرِهِ قَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدْرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, He says, Allah will provide from sources you can never imagine. Allah will provide you outcomes you would never imagine. And whoever puts his trust in Allah, Allah will be sufficient. Allah will suffice. Allah is enough for him. Allah will accomplish His purpose. Whatever Allah planned will come to fruition. Anything Allah plans, if we plan something else and it goes against Allah's plan, just trust that Allah's plan is better. Because Allah has already destined for everything that happened, Allah has put it in His place. Allah has already put it in His place. For us, we do what we can and we put our full 110% trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is ever outside of Allah's control. Right? Now, in the case of Musa alayhi salam, when he was in front of the Red Sea and the army of Fir'aun was behind him, what did he do at that immediate moment? What came to his mind? Did he fear? Did he say, oh my, I can't believe it? Did he do that? No. He immediately disbelieved his own eyes. He said, this is not possible. Think about it. He disbelieved what was in front of him and what was behind him. Because he believed in Allah more. He believed that Allah was with him. Even though when he was trapped between the Red Sea and the army behind him. This is something amazing. That if you disbelieve in reality in front of you, and you believe in Allah more than what you believed in front of your own eyes, what kind of iman is that? I honestly do not believe. I can't imagine What level of iman would that take for you to disbelieve in something in front of your own eyes? This is taqwa. This is true understanding of Allah. In the case of Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was strapped in the catapult and he knew that a fire was burning for weeks and it was meant for him, at the moment that he was sitting in that catapult, he disbelieved in reality. He disbelieved in reality. And he believed in his Lord. And what had happened? Something impossible. The fire did not burn Ibrahim alayhi salam. Something impossible. The water split for Musa alayhi salam. Something impossible. 3 impossibilities happened to Yusuf alayhi salam. Zakaria at an old age, him and his wife made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a child at an old age. Why would he do that? As human beings, we hear from the doctors, we hear from professionals, we hear from medical doctors. If we were to ask them today, a person past the age of 80, past the age of 70, past the age of 90, how likely would they bear a child? How likely would it be? Ask them. They would be 90%. It's not likely. It's not likely. It's nearly impossible. Sah? Wouldn't they say that? It is nearly impossible for a person at that age to have a baby. Yet, Zakaria, he made dua to Allah for something impossible because he knew his Lord. He knew that Allah had no limits, and he made that dua. And lo and behold, his wife at an old age bore a child. Something impossible. Do you understand? Do we understand that Allah does not have any limits? Do we understand that? If we understand this, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is sufficient for us. Allah is enough. This life, this reality, it will never give you enough, my brothers. It will never be enough for you. No matter how much you get from it, no matter how much millions of dollars you get from this world, once Allah takes your health, once Allah takes your house, once Allah takes your children, will you be able to be patient enough for it? Will you understand that Allah is enough for you? Will you understand the power of Allah? Will we understand that? When an event happens to us, an event that is so difficult for us to bear, will we be able to look at it and say, no, I don't believe it? Because Huwal Wahidul Qahhar. Huwal Wahidul Qahhar. Allah is the one that's supreme. Allah is the one that will control this event. And Allah is the one that looks after me. That is Allah. He has no limits. Now, what do we see in common with all of our prophets? I highly suggest, if you want examples to follow, you look at the lives of the prophets and those who followed them. The Sahabas, the people who followed our prophets, look to those for examples. These are the ones that we can find examples so that we can implement it in our lives. Now, in the ayah that we just read, ويرزقه منه حيث لا يحتسب ومن يتوكل على الله فهو يحسبه. Whoever puts their trust in Allah, has taqwa in Allah, is enough. Inna Allah baligh amri. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, Inna Allah baligh amri. Indeed, Allah's plan has already been accomplished. Allah will accomplish His purpose. What do we understand here? As human beings, when we start to understand who Allah really is, I want to use an example of zakat. Now, zakat is something very, very strange to me when I started to research zakat. If we ever understand zakat, and we try to understand it logically, we won't be able to understand it. Why? Zakat and charity and sadaqah is something that is bad for us if we think about it logically. Why would we give if it's causing us to have less and less and less? Why would we do that? So, if you were to ask any of the kuffar, did you know what? If you ask them about zakat or charity, they would only do it if it benefits them. That's it. They usually wouldn't give zakat if it doesn't benefit them. Right? Now, if we look at it, if you look at zakat in Islamic perspective, there is something very profound to be learned here. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises a person who gives zakat, Allah will give you twice as much. Right? If Allah were to give you back your money, wouldn't that be enough? That's rahmah. That's mercy already. You're not losing. Right? If you're giving and Allah gives back to you as much as you gave, you're not losing anything. That's rahmah. Now it's even more of a rahmah if Allah gives you twice as much. Do you understand? What we fail to realize is that Allah is Ar-Razzaq. Now, Allah doesn't stop there. Allah gives you twice as much. But wallahi, brothers, I challenge every single one of you today. Once you start giving more, Allah doesn't just give you twice as much. Allah gives you your health. Allah gives you blessings in your food. Allah gives you blessings in your shoes. Allah gives you blessings in your wife. Allah gives you blessings in every single step you take. When Allah says He's Ar-Razzaq, do not think that He just gives you twice as much. Do not think that He just gives you 10 times as much. Allah gives you to sources that you will never imagine. This is what it means by when He says He is Ar-Razzaq. And I started to personally witness this myself. Now Allah knows my deficiencies. When I started to give for the sake of Allah, my life has changed 360 degrees. Not only Allah gives me more. When I say He gives me more, my brothers, when I give $100, thousands of dollars comes to my pocket. Wallahi, brothers, I don't care if I get $1 million. The things that I started to realize in my life, the money that He gives to me means nothing to me. I don't even care if He gives nothing to me. The fact that Allah gives me the love of just giving zakat, the fact that Allah just gives me the love of giving zakat, if He does not give me anything else, just that one thing, wallahi, is enough. I would give more just because it brings me closer to Allah. That's enough for me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, عَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌّ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you may dislike something, although it's good for you. You might dislike something, but it's good for you. And you might love something, but it's bad for you. And He says, Allah knows and you don't know. Really sit down and understand this surah, or this ayah. Something like charity, you're like, I need this money. You're greedy. You want to keep it for yourself. You see more money coming in, and you're like, man, I love the growth. I love the income. I like seeing the plus sign, right? I don't like seeing it going down. Wallahi, brothers, take my word for this. The more you give for the sake of Allah, not only you get money back, you will start seeing everything in your life change. Wallahi, when I say everything, to your shoes, to what's on top of you, to what's on the side, to what's behind you, to the single drop of water that you drink, to the food that you eat, you start becoming satisfied with every single thing in your life. You're satisfied. This is the blessing. The money that you get back is not the blessing. I don't believe that it's the blessing, because it's just money for you to give again and again and again. The blessing comes from other sources. This is Ar-Razaq. When we say Ar-Razaq, He is the most giving. When you say someone is giving, everybody has a limit. Everybody has a limit. Allah is limitless. This is Ar-Razaq, right? Now, once we understand that our provision, the things that we gain, our money, our wealth, has already been written for, that is the blessing. To understand that I'm content with what I have, that understanding is a blessing from Allah. If we understand that our success and our failures has already been decreed, whatever happens in our life, we'll be content with it. I succeeded one day. I made money one day. If you drive Uber, you know this. Some days are bad. Some days you don't get a lot of customers. And some days, like, oh, mashallah. Like, customers keep going. You're pinging, the pinging noise is consistent. To the point where, like, oh, I need a rest. Khalas, ya Allah, you give me enough. Right? I need a break. If you're an Uber driver, you know this. Sah? Success and your failures has already been decreed. You should know that you should be content with both your success and your failures, because it's already been decreed by Allah. We also understand that we don't depend on others. You ask people for help, that's fine. But depending on them is something else. If you truly understand who Allah is, and all of your dependency, everything, all of your worries, all of your stress, if you know that Allah is taking care of it, you'll be content. You'll be like, Alhamdulillah, the person who's created the whole entire universe is looking over my stress, is looking over my problems. I'm happy. That's good enough, right? Let's just say that you have money problems. And Jeff Bezos, for example, says, hey, any money problems you have in your life, for the rest of your life, I'll take care of it. Wouldn't you be like, oh man, it's like a mountain lifted from your chest. Sah? Well, we have somebody who is more supreme than just Jeff Bezos, who owns every single wealth that exists in this world, who looks over every single condition and issue, is control of your life. We should feel like that mountain is lifted. This is the feeling, this is the blessing that Allah gives a person when you're closer to Allah. That in itself is a blessing, to understand Allah and to be closer to Him. Right? Now, once we reprogram ourselves, like once we start to understand who Allah really is, if we limit our understanding of Allah, we're just limiting ourselves. We're limiting our du'as when we make du'a to Allah. If we don't know who Allah is, we'll just ask Allah, Ya Allah, please give me just enough for this day. Right? Just enough for me to continue. Right? Or if a child, for example, if he doesn't have parents, he'll just ask, Ya Allah, let me just see my parents once more. If he knew that Allah was limitless, he would ask Allah, Ya Allah, let me see my parents forever in Jannah. Do you see the difference here? The difference is completely 100% different. You have somebody who is limited because his limit of understanding Allah is just here. But if you truly know Allah and He is unlimited, your du'as will be profound. There was a shaykh who passed away recently, rahimahullah. His name was Muhammad Sharif. He said, this is a quote from him, Who stands in front of a king? Who goes to a king and asks him for a penny? No one will do that, right? If you go to somebody and you know that that person is rich or that person has everything, you would ask, at the least, you would ask, can you just give me enough for the rest of the month? Or just give me enough for the rest of the year. I'll be happy with that. Sah? Right? You wouldn't go to a king and ask him for a penny. Similarly, when you sit down and make dua to Allah, know who Allah is. You wouldn't go to Allah and ask Him for a penny. Right? You wouldn't go to Allah and just ask Him, Ya Allah, can you just give me food for today? I'll be happy. Because you're just going to ask Him again and again and again. You go to Allah, and when you make dua to Allah, you ask Him for the impossible. You ask Him for a position next to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's throne. If you ask Allah for, if you ask in your dua, you ask Allah for al-firdaus when you go to Allah, because Allah is limitless. We have to understand who Allah is so that our du'as will be more powerful. Does that make sense? He continues to say, Muhammad Sharif, rahimahullah, he says, why are you limiting the limitless? Why are you limiting Allah, the one who is limitless? Why are you doing that? So he says, don't lower your standards. Don't lower your standards. Raise your du'as. Raise your du'as, as we just mentioned. And then he finishes and he says, if your life sucks, then that means that your dua sucks, right? What that means is that if your life is difficult, it's because your du'as is not powerful. Your du'as is deficient. Your du'as is not powerful enough. Raise your du'as. Ask Allah for the impossible. Ask Allah to see the prophets. Ask Allah to see the Sahabas. Ask Allah for Al-Firdaus. Right? Now some tips, and we'll end it with this. Some tips to raise our du'as, or to change, to be closer to Allah, is to change your du'as. To understand Allah and who you're asking. Because if you're just asking Allah for a penny, He'll give you a penny. Right? But if you ask for Allah for Al-Firdaus, it gives you a goal to reach. And you continue to ask Allah for Al-Firdaus. So know who you're asking. Another method is to connect to the Quran. To read it on a daily basis. Or to have a relationship with the Quran. Because Allah gives us examples in the Quran for us to follow. Right? And being closer to the Quran, it broadens our mind. And it helps us understand the power of Allah. Another thing is to be around people of good. To surround yourself with people who will remind you of Allah. Another tip is the morning and evening du'as. The morning and evening du'as. Within the du'a, if you sit down and try to understand these du'as that you make in the morning and evening, it will bring you closer to Allah, because it explains, it puts you in a state where you understand that you are nothing and Allah is the most supreme, and you are asking the only one that has control over you, and you have no control in your life whatsoever. The morning dua and the evening dua puts you in a state where you are in the lowest of the low, where we should be, and Allah is the most high, the most supreme. Now the biggest blessing, the biggest blessing is that Allah gives us the consciousness of Him, at-tawakkul. That's the biggest blessing. In anything we do in our life, when we do it for the sake of Allah, that is tawakkul. Right? And if we could just be patient throughout every single aspect in our life, we understand that Allah chose this path for us. Allah chose this path for me. No matter where it leads me to, Allah is leading me on this path. Right? And to understand that in itself is true success. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. وجزاكم الله خير.